All right, we'll get started with our Grand Rounds presentation. It's a pleasure for me to introduce a friend of mine, Ray Zinn, who's coming to us from a very different perspective this morning. Ray is president and CEO of Micrel, which is one of the semiconductor firms in the Valley. He's going to tell us a little bit about his life experience and how that's intertwined with his company. And where we're coming from is a little bit different than most of the Grand Rounds talks you may have heard. I'm a firm believer that we can learn a lot by looking for cross-pollination, for where different fields intersect, and hopefully learn some lessons from what he's done over the course of his life. Ray is an inspiration and has been a mentor to me over the past several years. He got his BS in industrial management from Brigham Young University and then an MS in business administration from San Jose State. And since then has done some really remarkable things in the industry. He holds 11 patents, is very active with developing intellectual property. Really, he has a wealth of knowledge, experience, and wisdom that he's going to hopefully share with us, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming Ray Zinn.
This is going to be a very different experience for me. Thank you, Dr. Davies. I've known Jason since he was in diapers, and it's really a very interesting opportunity for me to be here. Last time I was here was about 19 years ago when I had a problem with my vision, and the medical ophthalmology group looked at me. I had 60 doctors. I think probably the whole group here was looking at my eyes. I couldn't figure out why I needed so many people staring at me. I hope they learned a lot because it was a difficult time for me, and I will talk to you a little bit about that in a moment. So a little bit about my background. I'm the oldest of 11 children. I was born in El Centro, California, which is down near the Mexican border, 100 miles east of San Diego. My mother was an educator, taught school, and my father was a entrepreneur. He's bought and sold cattle, was an auctioneer. So I was raised in more of an agrarian background. And all I knew was that I didn't want to live in that hot country down there. So I had to find a way to provide a living for my family. I was unmarried at the time and decided to, after graduation, to move to the Bay Area, San Jose, California, where I began to work for a company called United Technology. I designed and built rocket motors. The motor we built was a solid booster called the SRB, the one that is the launch vehicle for the shuttle. I was part and parcel to the design and development of that booster. However, I was excited about this new industry called semiconductors. It was started in 1957 by a group out of Shockley Labs. They moved to the Bay Area, and just to give you a little background of that, you know, we refer to the San Jose region or that South Bay Area as Silicon Valley, and the reason for that is that the substrate that we use, you know, the product is imaged on these thin wafer slices called silicon, and thus the name referred to as Silicon Valley. The technology, of course, was very in its very infant stage, and the processes we use were all being actually innovated and developed, much like what you're trying to do here at UCSF. You know, you're trying to develop and enhance the technology associated with the medical field, and thus we were doing the same thing with electronics. My wife's father, by the way, once I came to Silicon Valley shortly thereafter, being a lonely college student, I was looking for a wife, and I did find my beautiful wife, Delana Zinn. Delana, stand. This is my wife, Delana. We've been married 53 years, and I have 21 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, and a couple more on the way. So I've got a great posterity, and really appreciate my wife and our long marriage that we've had. So back to the semiconductor industry. Her father was working at Fairchild, which is one of the startups. There's less than a handful of semiconductor companies at the time in the U.S. And the issue associated with this technology is that it was trying to replace vacuum tubes, and vacuum tubes were the way the electronics were originally done. So the functions were very immature. We could do maybe one electrical function. At the time I joined the industry in 1963. I am, by the way, just for information purpose, I am the oldest surviving semiconductor CEO in the world today. So you're looking at the old man, as you would. I've been in the industry since 1963, as I mentioned. The technology today, of course, is imaged on these wafers, these silicon wafers, and we now have tens of millions of functions, electrical functions that we can do on a single chip. And sometimes the industry is referred to as a chip industry, because these wafers are then diced into little quadrants called chips, and then assembled into packages, and then of course go into the various electronic systems. And now today, you know, semiconductor technology can be found in nearly every single system that we have, electrical system that we have. See, where am I here? How do we advance this, Jason? I have a vision problem, so I'm trying to figure out where I am. So when I started Micrel, this was back in 1978, and the industry, of course, wasn't that old, and so I was in at the very early stages of the industry. And my last job I had, which was designing and building semiconductor equipment to manufacture these products, my boss told me that I really shouldn't work for anybody, that I was that kind of a rebel that really should go out and form my own company. And so I went home one night after a visit with my boss and told my wife that I was not going to work for anybody again, that I was going to work for myself. And she said, okay, no problem. What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. So in July 1976, I left my company, Electromask, and started the formation of Micrel. So from 1976 to present, no one has signed my paycheck except me. So this is a real challenge for me to have to decided to start my own company. It was just myself and another fellow. We literally a garage operation. I know you've heard this before, how these companies started in a garage, but that's what I did. I started Micrel in a garage, in my garage, literally, along with another fellow. I didn't want to be venture funded, so most semiconductor companies are venture funded. And the reason for that is because it takes a considerable amount of money, somewhere between $20 and $50 million to start a semiconductor company. Well, I didn't want to be venture funded, and I didn't have $20 or $50 million, so the most I could round up was about $300,000 of private equity of myself primarily, along with my partner, and then we had to secure some bank debt. The problem is that banks don't fund technology startups because they're too risky. Banks don't like to loan to companies that lose money. So most semiconductor companies, when they start up, or most technology companies, are companies that are funded by venture groups, which have a 5-year window, meaning that their partnership has 5-year gaps in it, so that each funding is done on a 5-year basis. So they expect you to get up and running, and then of course either go profitable or be acquired in that 5-year window. So they of course, you know, with that much money, they spend it. and then they're supposed to ramp the company up sufficiently fast enough that they can then be acquired or go public. In my case, because of the fact that I started with $300,000, which is a fraction of what most semiconductor companies start with, it was necessary for me to go and get this bank financing. Well, the banks, again, didn't want to do it. I said, well, what would it take for you to fund a startup that's got $300,000, and what would you be willing to do in the way of covenants? Well, to make a long story short, the bank said, no, we don't want to do it. And I said, well, pretend you would do it. Just act like you would be interested in doing it, and tell me what it would take for my education. What would it take for me if you were to do a startup in this industry? They said, okay. So they listed these onerous requirements for me to meet, covenants, and when I came back and they explained it to me, I said, okay, I accept it. Where do I sign? And they said, well, wait a minute. We didn't say that we would fund you. And I said, well, but you did say that this is what it would take to do it. And they said, yeah, that's true. And I said, okay, and I agree. Well, you won't succeed. And I said, well, why would you make them so I wouldn't succeed? And so then we began to negotiate on reducing the covenants to a point where at least I had a chance of succeeding. But they were very onerous. They were very, very difficult. For example, the primary one that was hard was the fact that I had to be profitable every year. Remember, most semiconductor companies will go through $20 million in 5 years. So here I'm to be profitable from day one. Starting from the moment I opened the door up, I had to be profitable. That required a different mindset, a different philosophy in how to run a company, because I had to be profitable. That's unusual. Most companies aren't started out, as you guys know, and gals know, that the industry doesn't run profitably for a period of time. The reason for this is, of course, the venture guys, they want you to spend the money, they want to dilute you more, they want to get more of the ownership of the company, and they could care less whether you succeed or not as far as you individually. But what I wanted to do was form a unique company where every employee became an entrepreneur. So I had this entrepreneurial spirit, whereas, hey, we can make it happen, we can do it. All we need to do is understand the principles of how you run a successful company, which means you run it profitably from the day one. You don't just spend money for the sake of just trying to get the venture guys out of the investment. So that's what I did. Is I got a group of people that were employees that were willing to work, 24/7. They're willing to put in the effort and time to do the job to get the company profitable from day one. But it required a little slower. In other words, I had to go a little slower. I couldn't go there. I couldn't look at that 5-year horizon. So look, we did run profitably, and I had to be, as I said, the bank covenant says that I had to be profitable on an annual basis. And then the other issue is that I had to guarantee the loans of the company personally. And so I guaranteed the loans of the debts of the company up to $4.5 million for the first 7 or 8 years of the company's business. That's a lot of money. So if you think about, were you willing to take that risk? Are you willing to take on yourself the risk of your entire assets to run your company? But if you believe in it, then that's what you're willing to do. And so I tell you, my heart and soul went into the company, and I was able to do this for the entire time that we've been a company. Okay, can we advance it? So when I started the company, there was around less than 100 semiconductor companies, and then I went public in 1994. So it took a while. Most companies can go public if they're venture funded, can go public in say 5 to 10 years. But because we had less money to invest in starting and growing the company, it took us a while. It took us 16 years before we could go public. But we didn't go public because we had to. We went public because we wanted to, and there's a big difference. So today, in the industry, there's over 1,400 semiconductor companies, whereas at the time I went public, there's less than 200. And so you can see the industry has grown significantly. So I'm one out of 1,400 semiconductors worldwide. The company currently has a market cap of a little over 600 million, 635 million on today's stock price. It was as high as 7.5 billion before the dot-com implosion, but we currently have a market cap of 600 million. But that's still a 2,000% return on investment for that investment of $300,000. We have parlayed that into a company with over a market cap of 600 million. We have over 700 employees worldwide. We make 5,000 different semiconductor products that can be found in almost every semiconductor or every electronic system known to man. We're in garage door openers, we're in cell phones, we're in computers, televisions, you name it. The new high definition TV by Samsung does have our parts in it. Let's see. Already moved ahead. Okay, let's go to the next one. So today, the company, we have a campus in San Jose comprising about 200,000 square feet. The company is traded on NASDAQ under the symbol MCRL. You could, if you're interested, you can look us up. Our company has been profitable 34 out of 35 years. We're in our 36th year of operation. We're one of the oldest semiconductor companies now in the industry. A lot of them have been absorbed, but we're still independent. We're very proud of the fact that the company has been able to survive many, many cycles. We're very, very profitable, and our employees, we focus on the employee. We believe that if we help employees become better people, then they will make better employees. So I promise my people that I won't make you rich, but I will help you become a better father, mother, husband, wife, a good citizen. That's the focus of the company, is to help people become better people. And that's what you're going to learn about me in a minute when we talk about the lessons I have learned. So let's go to the next one, Jason. So what have I learned in my 36 years of running Micrel? Number one, cash is king. You can't go out of business as long as you have money. But as soon as you run out of money, then you're in trouble. That's why only 20% of companies succeed, is because they run out of money. Or they have to go and dilute themselves to the point where they lose interest in the company. We do a lot of acquisitions at Micrel. We've acquired over 6 companies since we started. And every company we've acquired was one of those 80% that didn't succeed and had to end up selling their company. They didn't want to sell, they had to sell. Why? Because they lost sight of the fact that cash is king. Your gazintas have to be more than your gazautas. And so that's a principle that I learned very early on. I kept my money in the drawer and I handed them out $1 at a time. I was very careful about how I spent the company's money. And even to this day, the company does pay a dividend. We pay a nice dividend. It's a 2% dividend we pay. And so the company is committed to making money, because you can't pay a dividend unless you're profitable. Okay, the next thing I learned is that you have to think outside the box. So, so what that means is you got to go from the known to the unknown and a little bit further. And now, of course, I'm talking to a group that is very sensitive to that. As I was watching before when I came in, you're talking about, I guess it was a spine operation, but you were talking about, how do you do this properly, and you keep innovating and creating, and you have to go outside you got to have very entrepreneurial creative thinking as you develop the surgery procedures that you use here at UCSF. And likewise at the company, you know, if I just think inside the box, I'm not going to be able to be creative. I can't grow the technology or the capability of the company. The example I use is a young girl was watching her mother cook a Sunday roast. And she wanted to know why her mother cut an inch off of each end of the roast. And her mother says, I don't know, that's just the way my mother did it. So then she went one time visiting her grandmother, and she asked her, Grandma, why do you guys cut off, why does Mom cut off an inch side of each end of the roast? And her grandmother said, well, because that's the only size pan we had. And so what happens is that we get locked in to the way we used to do it. And that's called conventional wisdom. So we get locked in to that thinking process. And you'll stagnate if you only think inside the box. You've got to get out of the box. Not only do you want to go to the unknown, you want to go beyond the unknown. And that's where Micrel succeeds, is because we go beyond the conventional critical thinking. The next thing is to have a very supportive spouse. And that's my wife. You know, without a supportive spouse, it's going to be difficult because, you know, you're going to go through these difficult times, these low points in your life. And when you do, you need somebody to keep you pumped up. And because your friends are going to tell you you're not going to succeed. When I started Micrel, I have a close friend who worked at another company, a similar company, a competitor actually, and I was asking him, you know, what he thought about me starting the company with $300,000 and, you know, the plan that I had, and he says, you'll fail, you'll never succeed. Well, let me tell you, it wasn't too many years later he ended up working for me. So, you know, it's really important to have someone to keep you pumped up. The other thing that I learned is be able to run on empty. Now, so what does it mean to run on empty? That means when you think you have no more gas in your tank, you can still keep going. And I'm going to combine that with this other one, is this never give up, failure is not an option. In 1994, when I was going public, in fact, I was in London at the time on the road show, taking our IPO, going out with our IPO. I noticed that when I was in the bathroom shaving, everything was blurry. And I just kept wiping the mirror thinking that there's something wrong with the mirror. As it turned out, I had a retinal vein occlusion. For you doctors, you know what that is. That's like a stroke in your eye. And it caused me to go blind. And so I was in a very depressive state here. I just had taken the company public, and then to find out that I had this serious medical problem that caused me to go blind. So today I'm legally blind. And I was told at the time by the medical profession that there was no hope for me, that I was done for, that, you know, roll over and die. You know, you just, that's the way it goes. You're stuck. It's one of those issues that happens in life. We don't know why certain people get strokes or what problems they have to cause that, but that you happen to have it, and you're 1 in 10 billion, but that's the way it is. So I was in a very depressive state, and didn't know what to do. Didn't know whether to just roll over and just forget it. But I decided to keep moving forward, not to let this become a showstopper for me in running the company. But I had to change things. I had to learn how to run the company when I couldn't see. Can you imagine, Dr. Davies, if you lost your vision, how would you feel about operating on a person's brain?
Well, I think, how would you feel about me operating your brain?
Well, how would you feel about me running your company when I couldn't see? You see? So it's the same thing. you know, it could happen to one of you. One of you could have a serious medical problem. Maybe you get a stroke. Maybe you end up with what I have, or some other debilitating disease. What do? Do you give up, or do you keep going forward? And so I learned a real lesson that, you know, we have a choice. We can either give up, or we can keep moving forward. And so I had to adapt. My memory is probably 10 times better than it was, maybe 100 times better than it was before I lost my vision. I'm also, my personality changed. I became more sensitive to people. I began to understand and appreciate the difficulties that they run into. You know, as Dr. Davies will tell you, I sing in the choir. I mean, I can't see the music, but I use a magnifier when I have to try to memorize it, and then I listen carefully to the piano or the organ to get my note, and I'm able to sing because he knows, because I sang with him in a choir. I also am learning to play the organ again. I'm now starting over. I used to play the organ, and now I'm trying to learn how to do it. I also like to shoot, and that's something that takes extremely good vision to do. But I'm learning to shoot without vision, and I'm very good. I shoot a target 1,000 yards away, and I'm able to hold groups within 4 inches. And so you adapt. You just move forward in a way in which you compensate for the physical ailment or difficulty you have. And this is where you can be encouraging to your patients. Never give up on them. Never let them believe for 1 minute that they are going to have to just forego their quality of life. You need to build them up. So the next is to begin. The rest is easy. And what I mean by that is that you know, you have to start. When you all of you were deciding to go into medicine, you know, you're talking about probably 8 years or 10 years of education and developing your career. That's a tough choice. And others, they say, well, we can't do it. I'm not going to spend that much time to try to become a doctor. And so they give up. But you decided to do it, but you had to begin. And if you begin, the rest is easy. And I learned that you know, I had all kinds of reasons why not to start the company, but I said, I'm going to begin. And as I began, one foot in front of the other, we did it. And it would just take that beginning is what was important. Be a willing listener. Now, I probably jumped ahead because I wanted to incorporate that in my discussion with you, is that a willing listener is somebody who cares, somebody who's kind, who believes that they can help others. And you're the perfect audience for this. A willing listener is a kind, gentle, understanding person. I know you have all these bed checks you got to do and a reviewing of the data, but you're working with people, and every person matters and counts. And if you're a willing listener, if you will take the time to show that person that you care, being gentle with them, you'll find that they'll heal quicker. Because that's what the healing process is for them to be convinced themselves that they can get better. And that's what it takes. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them proportionally. Listen to your patients. Listen to your spouse. Listen to your members of your medical group. Learn, and you learn by being a willing listener. Somebody who really wants to listen. And oftentimes we're just too busy. We think we have too much to do. We can't take the time. We got all these people to see, and we're just doing it by checking off. Check, 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 check. Did you see so-and-so? Yeah, check, check, check. You know, look at everybody as that was the only person on earth at the time. And that's, of course, I'm speaking to the right group here. If you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. Don't let your job become a drudgery. If you really love your profession, work is not an issue. People say, because I'm old and I'll be 77 in September, they say, well, why don't you retire? The reason is because I love what I do. You know, if I retire, I'm not going to enjoy it as much. I enjoy going to work. I enjoy being engaged with people. This is why I still work, even if I'm the oldest CEO in our industry. And you know, they keep asking me when I'm going to retire. Either an indication that I'm too old, or I look old, or something. But I don't feel that way. I was up at the ranch here last week, or a week and a half ago, and I was noticing I can't keep that. Even though my mind tells me that I have all this energy, I just can't keep that same level of energy that I had when I was in my 20s. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so you want to have a healthy lifestyle, because if you haven't got a healthy lifestyle, you're not going to be productive. And I think I'm talking to the right group, right, Dr. Davey?
I don't know. There's healthy folks in here.
Oh, they are? Okay. Here's a picture of me on the right at 65 doing a handstand. So, you know, I don't know of any other 65-year-old that can do that. And I'm not an acrobat. I'm CEO. I don't practice that. But that's what I did. I did that. And let's run this video if you can. My board of directors, they were trying to see if I should retire. And they said, well, if you can do a one-arm push-up, we'll let you continue as a CEO. There I am at 75 doing 2 one-arm push-ups. So, you know, if you think about, and I guess again, you know, this is the right forum to talk about this, is that, you know, a healthy lifestyle is going to keep you productive. As soon as you are, your lifestyle is not healthy, you'll see that your productivity diminishes. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is probably my favorite. Discipline is defined as doing what you don't like doing and doing it well. And that means there's projects you'll have, there are things in your occupation you'll have that you just detest doing. And so, you know, the more disciplined you are, the more of the ability you have of doing what you don't like doing and doing it well, you'll see your productivity increases dramatically. You know, that brings me to my second one, which is, you know, doing the tough things first. So what I do every day is I think of all the things that I don't want to do, and I do them first. The reason is that if I don't do them first, then it's on my mind, oh, I got to remember to do this, I got to remember to do this. And so I tend, I mean, I've learned differently, but one tends to put off things they don't want to do later, and it's called procrastination. All procrastination is putting off what you don't want to do. That's all procrastination is. So if you can learn not to procrastinate, in other words, do in your respective functions at the hospital, if you'll go do the things you don't want to do and do them, get them out of the way first, you'll find you'll have twice as much productivity that day. I promise you that. That's my promise to you, that if you go and do everything you don't want to do first, your productivity will double. And that's what I found is in my life, is that if I'll go do what I don't want to do and get them out of the way, I have much more. It frees up my mind, because if you think about how your mind works, you know, you're constantly reviewing all the things you have to do, and every time that you come up with one you don't want to do, it makes you want to, you know, it frustrates you, and frustration is a killer to productivity. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, and you can never be too kind. That's another thing that I learned, especially after I lost my vision. You know, you can only give as much love as you're willing to receive. And so if you're kind to people, they'll be kind back to you. There's no such a thing as you can't be too kind. And I know that that in your busy schedules that sometimes it's difficult to be kind, especially if you're hearing a lot of complaining. Your body, when it tells you it's got pain, is telling you there's something wrong. So when people complain, that's an indication there's something bothering them. And so the way you respond back to that, even though they may be antagonistic and critical of you, the way you respond back is just be kind. And I know when you're up here, when you're getting questioned, when you're doing a presentation, and you're being questioned and you're sweating and you don't know how to answer it, and they're enjoying getting to you. They can see they're frustrating you. If you let that get to you, you're not going to be able to think clearly about what the answer is. So you want to be able to deal with that and do it in a kindly way. Don't be a risk manager, be a risk taker. Sometimes and this sounds a little confusing to you because we're told that we should manage risk. We should weigh, what kind of anesthesia, what kind of procedure, and sometimes we get real cautious. But if you're not a risk taker, you're not going to enhance your field, your profession. Now, I don't mean to try to put somebody at risk. Put yourself at risk, not the patient. So I'm not proposing, by the way, that you guys put the patient at risk. Put yourself at risk. Take on challenges to yourself. Don't shy away from them because you don't want to look bad and you don't want to fail. Don't do that. As Tom Peters says, the more times at bat, the more chance you are hitting the ball. So be a risk taker, not a risk manager. Again, I'm not referring to your patients. Don't take risks with your patients. Put yourself at risk is what I'm referring to, okay? Faster is not fast enough. This is a funny one. So, time to market is very important for my company. And so when we sit down and we talk about our product development schedules, they often say, well, we just need to move faster. And I said, faster is not fast enough. And so they coined that, and that's up all over my building now. So because, it's like, I'm going to become better today. I'm going to become happier. Those are relative terms. Fast is not fast enough. Faster is not fast enough. You have to move as fast as it takes to do the job and get it accomplished. Getting the best use of your data. This is my last slide, and can we throw that slide up, Jason? So Jason was concerned about what did this mean. He was confused as to data. Now, what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is strokes. Okay, so there are parameters that you look at when you evaluate a stroke victim. You look at numbness, at weakness in a particular extremity, slurred speech, other characteristics associated with a stroke victim, and usually about 4 or 5 parameters. Is that correct? Yeah. So you have, and so you develop these measurement tools to say, is a person having a stroke or not? Now they're not precise, and so when you come to evaluating data, it takes experience and intuition. Now, you all know what experience is. Experience is what you have when you've got gray hair. Intuition is your gut. Taking all that experience, how do I apply that knowledge I have in a proper way with that experience I've developed? And that's called intuition. So your gut tells you, if that person's having a stroke, or no, that's not a stroke, that's a heart attack, or that's some other thing that person's having, because time is of the essence. They say that if you're having a heart attack, if you're not in a hospital, your chances of surviving only 7%. So time is of the essence. That's why I had this one about faster is not fast enough. But anyway, data. So we have parameters that we look at to measure and monitor the industry. So our stroke victim for our industry is lead times, inventories, pricing, and equipment utilization. I have found that those 4 parameters best define the health of my particular business in a particular segment of time. And so what we do is, this is something that we produce. If you were to go and listen to our conference call, which we're going to do a week from today, we're going to talk about this barometer. This we call, and just like the barometer you have for looking at symptoms of a particular medical problem, these are our barometers. So if lead times are up, that's good. If pricing is flat, that's good in a way. If they're down, that's bad. If inventories are down, that's good. But so inventories going up is not a good thing. But it's a natural thing. When lead times go up, inventories go up. And so we have these different measurements like cloudy. This obviously, this person's not having a stroke now, he's smiling. And so when we look at these indicators here, that tells us whether we're getting healthier or there's some things which we don't know and we need to understand and dig into further. So I share that with you because Dr. Davies wanted me to talk a little bit about how we use data in our industry. I have numerous other charts that I could show you, but this is what I thought would more simply explain how we use data, and we do this. This is actually a chart that I will use in my conference call with Wall Street a week from today. So we do use data, and we use it, but we have to, it's the experience plus our gut that helps us develop the answers to the questions about how do we run our business. And Micrel runs its business with data. I gather lots of data, but I don't have data for the sake of data. The data has to correlate to something that helps me run my business. Okay, so I think that's the end of my. Oh, we also have what we call the code of the West, and so in running the company, and this is true even for you in your profession, is honesty, being honest with your patients. Next is integrity. You know what integrity is? Integrity comes from the heart. If your heart is right, you have integrity. The next one is dignity of every individual. I've talked about this earlier in the presentation about being kind, being a willing listener. If you respect people, and by the way, in our company we don't allow any swearing. No vulgar language is allowed at our company. We treat all of each other with proper dignity. We don't use condescending language because we want to have a culture of growth. And to do that, you have to respect every individual. And the last is doing whatever it takes, no excuses. In other words, you're responsible for your particular function, and you got to do whatever you've got to do to make sure it happens, and happens in a way which has a positive solution for the outcome. With that, I'll let you ask some questions.
Thank you for sharing that wealth of knowledge. Any questions from the audience for Ray? Yeah, Chris.
Thank you. That was a very eye-opening listening discussion. I'm curious if you could give us some insight, maybe without getting overly technical, with 1,400 semiconductor companies out there that all basically use the same basic technology. I mean, what is kind of your niche? What was your innovation that's enabled you to survive this long and be successful?
Okay, that's excellent. You see, again, one of my very first lessons I learned was to think outside the box. So thinking inside the box means you're going to do it like everybody else does it. So obviously, I tell my people, and what we do when we do our process development, we have to think outside the box. I got to say, okay, where is it headed? Where do I need to be to stay ahead of the competition? And that's how we do it. So the technology that we develop is not available just anywhere. We have our own wafer fabrication facility, and there's less than 200 companies that have their own wafer fabrication facility in our industry. So that means that 1,200 companies rely on another foundry to develop their technology. We don't do that. We develop our own technology. Our technology is unique, and it has specialized processes that allow us to do things that other companies can't do or won't do. So that's the primary way. It's called innovation to success. And you do the same thing here. At UCSF, you guys are well known for your neurology. I know that. And you're specialists there. And so how do you do it? It's the same way. You have to be ahead of the curve. People are looking to you and say, well, what are they doing at UCSF? What's the new thing that they're doing? And it's the same thing there. I mean, you got how many hospitals? Thousands of hospitals across the U.S. So how do you become the best? You have to be at the head of the line. You got to be the one that's out thinking, outside the box. And that true? Is that actually going beyond what everybody else is doing?
Beyond.
Huh?
Taking risks, absolutely.
Taking risks, right? You're going beyond where everybody else is. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Karina?
So when you started your company, what made you think that none of the other semiconductor companies were profitable? What made you think that you would be able to be profitable from the get-go?
Okay, so you have to have a mindset. I mean, if I were going for an operation, and I said, Dr. Davies, do you think you're going to be successful at this? And if he says, well, I'm hoping, I'll say, can I get a second opinion? How would you respond if I said, well, do you think this is going to be a successful operation? What would you tell me?
What would I tell you or what I say?
What would you tell me? What would you say to me? How would you respond if I said, okay, is this operation going to be successful? Remember, honesty, integrity. What would you tell me?
Well, I think the culture in medicine is one, especially with the litigious environment, where you delineate the risks up front and you put some of the onus on the patient. You say, well, 50% chance of dying on the table, right? Do you want to take that risk? And I think that's kind of where medicine has come. But yes, you do have to have some sort of belief that you may be able to help them.
But what value do you get? I know I have to sign a form. I know I've been operated on a few times. I got to sign this bloody form that says you have a chance of dying on the table. What value is that for me? Zero.
Right.
Is of zero value. The only reason you do it is because of the politics. For insurance reasons. You're not trying to help me. You're just trying to help yourself. That's why being a risk taker, not a risk manager. When you say, well, there's still a good chance that you could die on the table and blah, 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 that's managing your risks. A risk taker is where you take it upon yourself, says, you know something, you're in good hands. I've been trained at UCSF. I'm the chief resident, blah, 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 and yes, you're going to have a successful outcome. What good is it going to do to tell them that you're not going to have a successful outcome or that you might not have? Is anybody going to be helped by that? I'm not. I'm not coming here if you guys think that.
All right,
unless I have to.
So you're the patient now, and you've been told that we think you're going to have a successful outcome, but you don't. How do you manage that?
I don't. You mean me personally or you? Am I the doctor or the patient?
I want you to be both, right?
You want me to be both the patient? I'm operating on myself.
So
okay.
You want us to be optimistic. You want us to take the risks, but then it doesn't always work out.
Well, let me tell you something. Back when I had my vision, I was a pilot, and I'd be so nervous of flying and worrying about bumps and just some accident taking place, and I wouldn't sleep. And my wife would be there just sawing logs, snoring away, and I'd say, how can you sleep when I'm nervous? I'm not even sleeping. She says, because I have more faith in the pilot than you do. So, I have to have more faith in the doctor than you have in yourself. That's ridiculous. Why don't you have faith in yourself? Why? Because you're managing your risks. Why do you think I had that up there about taking risks? Take a risk. It does no good at all to tell a patient that they're going to die on the table. And if they do die, what do you tell yourself? I feel awful. I would feel terrible. I wouldn't say, well, I managed. I did tell him there's a chance he's going to die. Can you get me a hamburger? I would feel terrible if somebody were to fail under my stewardship. I'd feel awful if I had any responsibility in that at all. Now, every single one you take has, as you said, how did I know when I started the company that I was going to succeed? How did I know I could be profitable? I didn't know for sure. It's not like, yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, today is a present, that's why they call it a gift. I look at each day as a gift, and I'm going to do the best I can this day to do the job I can. I can't worry about tomorrow, I can't worry about yesterday. I can only worry about today. I'll make today profitable, and then I'll make the next day profitable when it comes. I have to look at each day individually and do the very best I can at the time I can do it. I can't control anything but these few minutes I'm with you. Yesterday I can't control, tomorrow I can't control. I'm here talking to you guys today. I have control over that. And I believed I was going to be profitable. I worked I was going to be profitable. Every single day I got up, I'm going to say I'm going to be profitable. And if you do the same thing when you operate, if you say, today I'm going to be successful with this patient, I'm going to build a different quality of life for this patient, you'll be more confident and you'll be steadier as you do the delicate tasks that you have to do. It's no different than what I have to face. If I lost money, that bank is going to shut me down. I'll lose everything I own. Plus, I promised them that if I failed, that I'd also get 10 years of my salary if I failed. Can you imagine not having any income for 10 years? I mean, that's a lot of emphasis. If you're telling yourself as a doctor that if you fail, that you are going to resign your residency, which is like I said to myself, you'll be a little more careful, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Okay, you need that. You need that conviction. You need to be able to tell yourself, I am willing to take the risk that if I fail, you can have everything I've got. Now, is everything under your control? Absolutely not. But you can control what you can control. And that's where you're held responsible. As long as you know that you did everything possible under your control, then it's out of your hands. But as long as you haven't, it's still within your control and scope of responsibility. So did I believe I was going to be profitable every day? Absolutely, I believed it. Did I have control over it? To some degree. I didn't have total control over it. And I think you guys know that. But I did it. I did it for 34 out of 35 years. I lost money in 2002 because of the downturn of the dot-com implosion. I had to consolidate 2 facilities together. But I only lost $50,000. $50,000 is total loss. So in 36 years, my company has only lost $50,000. We have over $100 million in cash in the bank today that run the company. We are very profitable because we have that mindset. And you will be successful doctors if you have that mindset that you're not going to fail, that every single patient you have is under your tutelage and your responsibility, and you're going to do everything possible. That's why I had this do whatever it takes, no excuses. Do whatever it takes. And that's what I did when I run the company. I do whatever it takes.
I think we have time for one last, Dr. T.
This is very inspirational. A little out of our kind of box. So thank you for coming. I wonder if you would care to share with us actually what happens when we fail, because you have enough gray hair and I'm getting them, and we all know how many times that happens, but that is not the end, and at the end you need to be able to be positive. So what lessons have you learned from the failures? Because I consider a healthy life plenty of failures, and being able to get up back in the saddle and go, for us sometimes and for the younger folks, can be a little bit tough to get back in that saddle. What have you learned in that, and how do you capitalize on that?
Okay, so failure is not an option. Remember I said that? Okay, so failure is not an option. That's not in my vocabulary. So you say, well, but failure is a part of life. It is for some people, but I don't look at failure as an option for me. 2 weeks ago, I was up at the ranch. I was riding with my wife, and we were going up this hill, and my horse began to buck, and I stayed on for a while, but then he spun to the left, And I went to the right, and as I was falling off, he kicked me right in the thigh, and I was laying on the ground, and I was just in such agony. By the way, my whole leg turned black and blue. I was in terrible pain, but I got back up. I didn't slap the horse. I didn't beat him. I got back up, got back in the saddle, and I rode off. Okay? Did I fail? I failed if I didn't get back on. But I didn't fail because I got bucked off. Okay? So just because you have a problem in a procedure doesn't mean you failed. You failed if you didn't do something about that. Get back on. That's what you do. Failure is not an option. Don't fail. Just get back on. If you've had with something the procedure started going south, okay, that's not a failure. That's a challenge. If we didn't have challenges in life, we wouldn't grow. So don't look at a challenge or a problem as a potential failure. Only if you don't do whatever it takes. I got back on. Even at my age, I got back on. I didn't get off and say, okay, I'm done, I'll walk back, I got back on, I rode the rest of the trail. It was killing me, though. My leg was hurting terrible. I couldn't even move my leg forward because there was so much pain in my thigh. But I kept going because failure is not an option. Does that help you? I mean, this gray hair tells you, even though my eyes, you used to call my eyesight a failure, my retina vein occlusion, you call it a failure? My eye failed, but I'm not failed. I didn't fail. I got back on. I kept going. I figured out another way. I said, okay, I'll have to adapt. I got to compensate. I have Jason help me here run the slides. I get the print big enough. I mean, I'll do whatever I have to do to succeed, but I will not fail unless I let myself fail. And it's up to you to decide whether or not you are going to get back on or whether you're just going to throw in the towel. It's your choice whether you fail or not. And I don't look at problems as failures. I have problems. I have problems every day at work. I just don't look at it as an opportunity to fail. I look at an opportunity to succeed. Because all success is overcoming a problem. That's all success is. You can't call success that you, like the lottery or something where you win the ticket and they hand you tens of millions of dollars. That's not success. Success is when you overcome a problem. So what is success then? Success is overcoming failure. So if you don't succeed, obviously you didn't overcome the failure. You will have challenges. But don't let that be a hindrance. Just look at that as, great, I'm glad we had this happen because now I get to do this and this. I learned something from that. That's what I do. Does that help you?
All right, I think with that we'll have to wrap it up. But thank you very much for coming out and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I find this a very unusual position to be in. We have